if he was to come down at 168, would you fight Benavidez?
Oh, of course. That'll be a big fight.
I would love to see that because that's also, Mexico versus Puerto Rico
sure.
rivalry.
Yeah, that's a big fight. You know what I'm saying? That's another money fight right there.
Yeah, big one.
It's something big right there. And that with me and him, I'm not gonna be running. He's not gonna be running.
No.
It's gonna be.
What's interesting to me is how quickly fighters or even people in general can have a change of heart as soon as tempers start to flare. If my memory serves me correct, during the first press conference for the September 14th showdown between Canelo Alvarez and Edgar Berlanga, it was Edgar Berlanga who called out fans for complaining about him being Canelo's next opponent with some choice words for the guy many want to see step in the ring with Canelo, David Benavidez. Berlanga didn't hesitate when saying fuck David Benavidez and pretty much calling Benavidez a clown. Berlanga somewhat stuck up for Canelo by saying he's a legend, he earned the right to do what he wants. However, after the back and forth during the last press conference, Edgar Berlanga changed his tone immediately and completely did a 180 by calling Canelo the biggest coward in boxing. If you missed it, when being interviewed by Fight Hub TV, Berlanga went on damn near a 15-minute rant about Canelo, calling Canelo every and any disrespectful name he could think of, like cabron, super pussy, etc., etc. And when asked what his take on the whole Canelo and David Benavidez situation was, Berlanga stated that Canelo's not only crazy, but basically implied that Canelo scared to fight David Benavidez. Edgar admitted that initially he didn't think Canelo had any fear when it came to Benavidez, but now after hearing Canelo's comments during an interview he did with Sway, the fact that Canelo entertained the topic of weight and how big David Benavidez usually rehydrates for fights is a clear indication to him, Berlanga, that Canelo is a coward. Berlanga elaborated when pointing out that Canelo fights at 168 and comes into the ring heavy just like the rest of them, so that there shouldn't be an issue with a guy's in-ring weight when Canelo has already had fights at the light heavyweight division. During the interview, he called Canelo soft, said that Canelo's no killer, told Canelo that he can see the chinks in his armor, and warned Canelo that he, just like the rest of the world, can keep sleeping on him because he knows Canelo's not taking him serious. Now, for starters, I'm sure that for most fans in general, the first thing we all would assume is that Edgar Berlanga is obviously trying to get under Canelo's skin, and of course is going out of his way to sell the fight to the public, which is indeed accurate. However, I have a feeling there's a bit of ulterior motives going on with Berlanga's mental warfare here. You see, in the same interview, Edgar compared his star power to the other 168-pounders like David Benavidez and David Morrell. And as delusional as this may sound, Berlanga stated that he's a bigger star than both of those guys, and believes that's how he punched his ticket to the Canelo Alvarez sweepstakes. Of course, most folks will laugh and holler at the thought of that because this big head ass boy is clearly bugging, right? The thing is this though, I can understand how a fighter in Edgar's position has to milk the opportunity as much as he can, and I'm starting to consider if this old switcheroo from Berlanga was all premeditated. One thing about the dude is this, he may come across as sort of a dun-dun-dun or a bruto, as my Latino fans would say, but the motherfucker might be smarter than we all assume. Because from a marketing standpoint, he's a pretty boy, he's flashy, he has a mouthpiece on him. The nigga looks like he could be a reggaeton artist or rapper that belongs in Miami with DJ Khaled and them boys, which would come as no surprise since him and Fat Joe appear to be close. Also, being Puerto Rican as well as a Brooklyn, New York native who made it to the big time can already be a cheat code in itself. Remember, Canelo's last 4 opponents weren't this outspoken. Yes, Jermell Charlo caught everyone off guard by showing no antics and doing the total opposite of what we all expected, but not everyone intends to go that route. And guys like Jaime Munguia, Triple G, and John Ryder don't fit the bill for trash talk and mind games. Therefore, I'm of the notion that Berlanga and his handlers are piecing together a built-in promotional tactic that can be somewhat of a parachute or safety net regardless the outcome of the fight on September 14th. I'm of the suspicion that Berlanga may have realized that he can gain more by using the whole Canelo Benavidez narrative to his own advantage. Because for those of you who don't already know, David Benavidez laid Edgar Berlanga's ass out in sparring a few years back. According to Davis Potts, he dropped him about 3 or 4 times if my memory serves me correct. And although sparring and real fights aren't always the same thing, one thing we must consider is this. If Berlanga's really starting to believe that Canelo is in fear of David Benavidez, maybe the perception would be that since Edgar Berlanga has already been in there with David, he may not only see an upset over Canelo as some sort of redemption, but I'm sure we all know that if by some miracle he does defeat Canelo, there would indeed be a rematch. And a rematch if you're in Edgar Berlanga's position just means another payday. Payday. Shit, even a draw means they run it back for another bag. Probably an even bigger bag at that. Regardless, if they could even get to that point, win or lose, if you're Edgar Berlanga, being that him and Caleb Plant already have an ongoing beef and him and Benavidez seem to share a bit of history, I wouldn't put it past Berlanga to be looking for his next target after this fight with Canelo, and that seems to be coming full circle because Caleb Plant must be sharing a similar playbook to Edgar Berlanga's and has got to be laying groundwork to secure his own insurance policy as well. Listen, if you don't already know, Caleb Plant recently bought the Edgar Berlanga website in an attempt to troll the mans, and I don't know whether to call this shit savage or just flat out petty. But if you type in edgarberlanga.com in your search bar right now, you can see the disrespect. Plant also issued a warning on IG Live to Edgar Berlanga about some threats Berlanga made challenging EB to step to him when he sees him. It's almost as if the pieces to the puzzle seem to already be falling into place on both sides. They say controversy sells, right? So it's pretty clear that the fighters who know. And since Berlanga knows how to run his mouth, I'm guessing it doesn't take much for him and his people to play the old Ricardo Mayorga game, if you know what I mean. This is why, after seeing reports that Berlanga was open to facing David Benavidez next, I had a hunch that my suspicions could be right, but because some reports can be fan-driven, bogus articles, it turns out this clip you see at the beginning of the video was a recent interview Berlanga did on the Only Caleb's podcast. You heard his reply and how unhesitant he was to entertain the idea of a bout with Benavidez. So I wouldn't be surprised if sometime next year we see Berlanga using Canelo's name in the build-up for a fight with David Benavidez. You know, saying shit like, I'm not afraid to face this guy, I'm a real killer. Yada, yada, yada. The truth is, sometimes having or showing a bit of personality can get you to the next level, and I believe Team Berlanga is aware of this. I'll tell you right now, I'm active on many social media outlets, and the casuals are eating all this shit up, bro. Especially the ladies. So it's evident why Canelo has no worries about the UFC, because it's clear as day that this fight with Berlanga will do numbers. You have some who believe in Edgar Berlanga just as much as he claims to believe in himself, and you have others who just want to see him get rocked in the snap box. Either way, might as well stay tuned because I'm sure more drama will be unfolded shortly, and the trash talk isn't done by a long shot. Hop off.
Because they like, yo, how the fuck Berlanga just became the mandatory like 4 months ago, and all of a sudden he's fighting Canelo, and Benavidez was the mandatory for how many years, and he, you know, Canelo was like ducking him and shit. So I see why, you know, they upset. Like, you know, he made this guy wait, still waiting. He probably never ever gonna fight him, and then he got a guy like me that's, you know, WBA mandatory. He's like, oh, I'm fighting him.